the main question that's come up so far was, Ruby, you mentioned the PAP engine, and not everybody that's following LENR knows very much about the PAP engine, but maybe you could tell people where they could go to find out more about it and how the Roner brothers got involved with it, and just as on a side story.
Well, the Roner brothers worked with Joseph Papp. They actually spent, I don't even know how many years, but years and years with Joseph Papp. They built his engine. And so when Joseph Papp passed away, apparently they didn't get to know everything. And they had to try to reproduce the mixture of the fuel, and geez, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, really sure the details on that, but they didn't get the full story from Joseph Papp, so they tried to reproduce it. Anyway, so Joseph Papp passed away. They've got all the equipment, and they are in Iowa. And I am really sad to say that I don't know what their progress is right now. They were trying to get some funding to do more. Bob Roner lost his brother to cancer, I think it was, and that was very devastating. That was his big partner. And so he was trying to get some funding. He needed to hire somebody else to help with this work. And they didn't get the funding, and it was just awful. You know, that's one thing about, you know, putting yourself out there and like just, what are these self-crowdfunding sites? When you do that and nobody shows up, it's just devastating. And I just felt so bad. It was awful. If anybody deserves some funding, I tell you, Bob Roner does. He's got the original Joseph Papp equipment and worked with them, knows more than anybody on it. And I just hope you guys in Iowa will maybe get down there and give him some love and attention and see what's up with him, because he really deserves it. As far as learning more, I think some of the best information comes from Infinite Energy magazine articles. Don't ask me what year, but they go through the science. Actually, Heinz Klosterman wrote a big article about Joseph Papp's work, and Infinite Energy did probably the best coverage on that, but these are old issues. But search Joseph Papp, Infinite Energy, you'll come up with the info.
Okay, thanks, Ruby. Yeah, if anybody tries, you can Google PAP engine, P-A-P-P engine, and get a lot of history on it from the internet. It looks kind of like a one or multi-cylinder gasoline engine, except instead of gasoline, it has noble gases that are in the cylinder, and they're electromagnetically pulsed, and that seems to generate enough energy in the PAP engine to run it without actually adding any fresh fuel. So yeah, it's sort of a sideline to LENR, and people suspect that if it does work, that there's an LENR process at work there. Okay, Ruby, the next question that came in is there's rumors you have a new project in the works, a new film or video, and wondered what your future plans are.
I do. I'm doing another science film, and I'm not going to say what it is because I could be taking some flack for it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's important. So, but I am doing another of my heavy science head films. And after that one, which I'm also going to work with animator for this next film. And we're going to do some nuclear reaction animation. So very excited about that. But after that, I'm going to basically focus on a documentary for the field, on the field for the general public. We're getting to a point now where we really need to tell the stories to the average person. So far, my movies are for the small group of people that are really into the science and know a little bit something about the science. But the general public's not going to really sit through anomalous effects and get through all of that. We need to have something that speaks to them and that puts this field in the proper perspective. We know now the effects of this. We have the Rossi lawsuit, and it's caused a lot of confusion, and it's not a positive thing. So we have to continually focus on the scientific work that's moving forward and show this scientific work moving forward in a way that the public can understand and see the reality and support that. If all they hear about is lawsuits and accusations of fraud, and that's not going to be good for our field. So something that speaks to the general public is on the docket for me.
Okay, thanks. All right, got a question about your interview with Rossi. There's a question about what do you think Andrea Rossi was working on during the time when you interviewed him in Miami? Which project do you think he was doing then?
I'm not sure. That was in 2012, so that was during the transition period. I think he was just starting that big 1 megawatt situation. He was going from those early prototypes that were smaller, that sat on the table. We all saw the pictures from the University of Bologna, I believe. So that was a time when he was putting a bunch of little ones together to make a really big heat. He wanted to try to do that. And, the situation with Rossi is so unfortunate. And I have not been following the lawsuit. I don't know the legal situation at this time. I will just say this on the topic of Andrea Rossi. I believe Andrea Rossi can make heat. The reason I believe he can make heat is because it was Sergio Ficardi who introduced us to Andrea Rossi. Sergio Ficardi was one of the original researchers who got big heat from the light hydrogen and nickel systems, along with Francesco Piantelli. The Italians were really creative in those early years, experimenting with different materials and different ways of doing the Fleischmann-Pons excess heat effect. And Sergio Ficardi, Francesco Piantelli, and their associates, of which there's a number of them, knew that light hydrogen nickel made big heat. They reported thermal energy or thermal power much higher than the palladium deuterium systems. And so that right there tells me Sergio Ficardi knew how to recognize heat. He was a respected physicist, the head of his department at the university. He, as far as I know, they started working together in 2007. And so I have to believe that Sergio Ficardi would know if there was anomalous heat or if it was a trick. And so I believe that Rossi can make heat. However, I believe that Andrea Rossi is in the same situation that all our researchers are. We have tremendous talent working on this. Robert Goddess's cell at Briun Energy He's been working on this. He's got control. They're trying to engineer a technology. The problem is, how do we scale it up? And that may be why Andrea Rossi, he finds heat. He's got a little tabletop ECAT. He wants to scale it up. So he's putting a bunch together, and he's got an idea to make a 1 megawatt with a bunch of little ones. It doesn't look like that's panned out.
Okay.
And so, you know, all of these researchers who get into this and stumble upon a way to make this reaction happen, find out very quickly that to scale it up, to control it, is a very different issue. And that's where we're stuck right now. The few people who have stumbled upon a recipe to make it happen are limited by the fact that there's no theory. We need a theory badly,
Yes.
to tell us how to make it happen.
Apparently, the interest in LNR has reached the sort of the top levels of our government, and there looks like there's the Secretary of Defense might be producing a report on LNR for Congress coming up soon. Have you heard any more about that particular aspect?
I have not heard any more about that, and I'm looking forward to that. I've heard some scientists, a few scientists, say, oh, well, that's just going to be some theater. We've already briefed the top people. They haven't picked up on anything. Other people say, well, yeah, it may be theater, but it's a good step. I wonder if the calendars that were sent to every Congress member and every Senate member by Steve Kaczynski and David Nagel. David Nagel is in Washington, D.C. He worked at the Naval Research Lab for many years and is now at George Washington University. And I wonder about if there was any effect there. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to hearing what comes out of that.
Right. Yeah, thanks. We're all kind of anxiously awaiting from that more information too. So since you've been involved in trying to get information out to the public in different venues, do you have any opinions on what is the best way to get information out to the common interested people on LENR? What have you found to be the best way so far?
Well, there is no best way for everybody. We have different layers in our society, and every layer gets a different best way. If you're in Congress, you got to be short, quick, important. You've got to relate to their constituents somehow. If you're just talking about people on the street, you have to connect with art, I believe. Our letter writing campaigns and talking to the regular people one-on-one, that's successful. But the biggest bang is the videos. When you make videos, then everybody can watch them, every layer of society, whether you're in Congress or whether you're just a regular person walking around. So that's why we focus on the videos now, because they reach pretty much everybody. If you want to do something, though, you can, the new DITRA report that came out, that's a really powerful report, kind of heavy on the science, but the introduction, the conclusions, simple enough for anybody to read. Send those to your Congress people, and I think that's a positive viewpoint that shows some federal agencies are supporting this.
Okay, thanks. There's a question from Steve Bannister, who's at the University of Utah, and he wondered if you met anybody at the University of Utah still open-minded about LENR.
When I went to the University of Utah, I went to the archives first. I introduced myself, asked for the Fleischman Pons files, and they got a couple of folders for me. I didn't see it all. Apparently, there's another warehouse where boxes were, and I wasn't able to see them. I spent 2 days going through the files there, just looking at the couple of these folders, flipping through newspaper clippings, um, press releases by the university. It was amazing. I could not believe the virulent attacks that those two men and their families took. It was shocking. And I did walk the halls of the chemistry building there. I was looking for somebody to talk to. When I went in, I had some stickers with me and found some students, introduced myself, told them I was here to just see what was happening here, and told them what I was doing in the cold fusion situation, and they giggled, laughed, they were polite. Went to another office. There was a professor there. I said, "Hi, I'm Ruby. Would you like a sticker?" And he took the sticker, he saw it, and then he started putting it in the trash can. And I quick grabbed it. I said, "Oh, I'll take that." And he just says, "I don't have time for this." And I was like, "Okay, sorry." And I left. So there was no support. There was no pictures of Martin Fleischmann. There was no pictures of Stanley Pons, who was the chairman of chemistry at the time. And in that chemistry building, they have a lot of portraits of the important people. And Martin Fleischmann, Stanley Pons are not among them. There is virtually no trace whatsoever that they did any work there. And it was really shocking and sad. And of course, we know at some point that we're going to have a breakthrough, and this is going to blow wide open. And the University of Utah is going to turn around and erect a statue of these people and claim ownership. And isn't that the way it goes? And, you know, that was a sad time there.
Have you had any contact with Rossi at all since your interview?
I have not, and I'm sorry to say, you know, you have so little time. This is all volunteer work, and you have so little time to do everything. Generally, I'm just focused on whatever project I'm working on now, and I haven't been able to have much time to contact him or talk with him. I'm rooting for him. At the same time, I know that Industrial Heat has done a lot of funding or some funding to various researchers in this field. And I want them to continue. I hope that they are still feeling positive about the field in general. And I hope to speak with both of them at some time. One of our projects for the feature documentary film is to visit with those two groups again. For the feature documentary, we want to get Rossi and talk with him about his perspective, and I'd like to get Industrial Heat to talk about their perspective as well. So that is something that we plan on in the future.
I see a question popped in while we were talking, asking if anybody had heard of an explosion from LENR experiments that was anywhere close to what natural gas explosions cause in a house. I'm going to say I've not heard of anything recently. In the very early days of LENR, there were some laboratory accidents that caused glass to fly, and possibly either from the ignition or overpressure of some boiling electrolysis experiments. And there was one death, I think, in a laboratory, if I remember right. But in terms of the explosive power compared to natural gas, I would say natural gas is much more has proven to be much more explosive. And maybe somebody else has a comment on that.
Yeah, the early laboratory explosion at SRI did kill a researcher there and was very devastating to the program and the people that worked there. And I'm really grateful that they found the will to continue despite that. But it was early on because one of Fleischmann and Pons's early experiments actually came in the next after the weekend or something, and it had actually gone through the bench and the table and down into the floor. That's when they knew that this really can make big energy. And Martin Fleischmann was apparently very concerned about this technology being used by others to weaponize it, and was wanting to get the military agencies to really look at this and start taking this seriously. And so that was one of Martin Fleischmann's concerns, was the danger that this could pose if it were weaponized. It is a powerful energy source, and like anything, can be turned into a weapon. Our applications, generally this is a very safe situation when you're treating it right. We're using metal and some hydrogen. Hydrogen is always dangerous. So it's very important that people who research this understand the dangers of hydrogen and how hydrogen can explode. Much of the cells now, they're not using hydrogen gas or, the electrolytic, getting the hydrogen out of a water solution. They use these hydrides. So the hydrogen is inside the fuel, maybe as a powder. And when it's heated, that hydrogen is released and that provides the fuel. So the dangers is less when you don't have a big hydrogen tank. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruby. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
So it's time for our concluding remarks. I'm very, very happy that we were able to have Ruby to do this webinar, and the video I think is going to be fantastic. We thank you so much for your work in this field. And I agree with you. Someday we'll get that breakthrough and it will be world changing. It really will. Please visit our website at energy2.0.org. The video of this webinar will be posted there, so we invite you to visit it.
Our special thanks to Catherine Zeman at the University of Northern Iowa's Recycling and Reuse Technology Transfer Center for their support of this program.
For more information about LENR, in addition to Ruby's websites, you can go to ecatworld.com, and it's too bad Frank was not able to join us today, but I'm sure he'll enjoy the video as well. So, thank you again for joining us. This recording will be posted on YouTube, and that concludes our meetings.